I signed the papers in a restaurant. She held my hand while I did it. £158,000. My entire pension fund. 43 years of work. The land agent smiled at me. Her cousin, she said. Family you can trust. I believed every word. The property didn't exist. None of it was real. And I didn't find out until I had nothing left. I'm sitting across from Maricel at Cafe Laguna, our spot overlooking Dumaguete Bay, and she's sketching something on a napkin with that focused look she gets when she's excited. The sunset's doing that thing where it turns the water gold, and I should be enjoying it, but my hands won't stop shaking. Look, Terrence, this is the beachfront, she says, drawing a wavy line. And here, this is where the property line runs. 800 square meters, right on the sand. I watch her hand move across the napkin, and I think about Margaret, about what she'd say if she could see me now. Would she tell me I'm being a fool? Would she understand why I need this? The attorney's coming at 8, Maricel says, looking up at me with those eyes that made me trust her in the first place. But we can cancel if you're not ready. There's no pressure, okay? That's what gets me every time. The way she acts like she doesn't need this, like my money doesn't matter to her. I reached across the table and touched her hand. I'm ready, I tell her. I want to do this. She smiles, and I feel my chest tighten, not from excitement, from something else. Something I'll understand too late. I met Maricel 8 months ago at the public market. I was trying to buy mangoes and failing miserably because my Tagalog consisted of about 5 words, and none of them were useful. She appeared next to me, said something to the vendor in rapid-fire Tagalog, then turned to me and said in perfect English, "He's asking if you want the ripe ones or the ones for tomorrow." I must have looked like an idiot, just staring at her. Ripe. I finally managed. "Please," she translated. The vendor bagged my mangoes, and I paid probably twice what they were worth. Maricel walked with me toward the street. "You're new here," she said. It wasn't a question. "Is it that obvious?" I asked. She laughed. "Yes, but don't worry. Dumaguete is friendly to foreigners. Where are you staying?" I told her about my apartment near Rizal Boulevard. She told me about the best places to eat, where to buy groceries, which jeepney routes were safe. We talked for maybe 20 minutes on that corner, and when we said goodbye, I felt something I hadn't felt since Margaret died. Not attraction, exactly. Just the feeling that maybe I wasn't completely alone anymore. Now, 6 months later, I'm about to invest £158,000 in land I've never legally verified, because that same woman is sitting across from me, sketching property lines on a napkin. "Tell me again about your family," I say, trying to sound casual. Maricel looks up. "What do you want to know? The land. How long have they owned it?" She sets down the pen. "My grandfather bought it in the 1970s. Back then, it was cheap. Nobody wanted beachfront property in Pangasinan. Now, of course, everyone wants it. That's why my uncle wants to sell. He's sick, Terrence. Cancer. The family needs the money for treatment." I nod like this makes perfect sense. Like families sell prime beachfront property to help with medical bills instead of getting a loan. "And your cousin Luis?" I say. "He's a real estate agent? Property consultant?" She corrects. "He has his license and everything. He's helped a lot of families sell land. He knows all the legal requirements." The waiter brings our food, and we eat in silence for a while. I watch her push rice around her plate, and I wonder if she's nervous too. Maybe she's worried I'll back out. Maybe she's worried about her uncle. Or maybe she's just a really good actress. At 7:45, Luis arrives. He's maybe mid-40s, wearing a crisp barong Tagalog and carrying a leather briefcase. He shakes my hand firmly and sits down without ordering anything. "Mr. Terrence," he says, "Maricel tells me you're interested in the Pangasinan property." "I am," I say, "but I have questions." "Of course. Ask me anything." I pull out my phone, open my notes app. The lot size is 800 square meters. Exactly 800. I have the survey documents. And the location. You said it's directly on the beach? Beachfront. 15 meters from the high tide line. Property taxes current. All paid through this year. Zoning? Luis smiles. Residential. You can build a house, operate a small guest house, whatever you like. No commercial restrictions. I look at Maricel. She's watching me with this expression I can't read. Pride, maybe, or nervousness. The price? I say, £158,000 seems high for Pangasinan. Luis nods. In most areas, yes, but this is prime location. We've had offers from developers for twice that amount. The family is selling to Maricel's friend at a discount. Friend, not boyfriend, not partner. Friend. Why not take the developer money? I ask. Luis glances at Maricel, then back to me. They want to build a resort. 30 rooms, restaurant, the whole thing. My uncle doesn't want that. He wants someone who'll respect the land, keep it simple. Maricel told him about you, and he liked what he heard. At 8 o'clock exactly, Attorney Reyes arrives. He's older than Luis, maybe late 50s, wearing wire-rimmed glasses and carrying a worn briefcase that looks expensive. He orders coffee and spreads documents across the table. Mr. Terrence, he says, I'm Attorney Reyes. I'll be handling the legal aspects of this transaction. I shake his hand. It's dry, firm, confident. I want to understand the foreign ownership restrictions, I say. He nods. Very smart. In the Philippines, foreigners cannot own land directly. However, there are legal arrangements. The most common is to have the land titled in a Filipino citizen's name with a cohabitation agreement that protects your investment. And that's legal? Completely. Assuming you and the title holder have a genuine relationship, which you do. He gestures toward Maricel. I feel my face get hot. We've never discussed making this official, never talked about marriage or anything like it. But here's this attorney assuming we're together in that way. Maricel reaches under the table and squeezes my knee. It's okay, she whispers. Attorney Reyes slides papers toward me. This is the conditional sales agreement. You'll pay half today, half upon completion of title transfer. The land will be titled in Maricel's name, but you'll have legal documentation of your investment and rights to the property. I stare at the papers. How long does title transfer take? 60 to 90 days. The registry of deeds moves slowly, but I'll personally ensure everything is processed correctly, Luis adds. I've worked with Attorney Reyes for 10 years. He's very reliable. I should ask more questions. I should demand to see the original title, visit the registry of deeds myself, hire an independent lawyer. But Maricel's hand is on my knee, and Luis is smiling at me like I'm already family, and Attorney Reyes is pointing to signature lines with the confidence of a man who's done this 1,000 times. Can I have a night to think about it? I ask. The table goes quiet. Luis and Attorney Reyes exchange a look. Maricel pulls her hand away. Of course, Attorney Reyes says carefully. But I should mention, I have another client interested in this property. If you're not ready to commit, I'll need to inform the family. Another client? I ask. Luis nods. A businessman from Manila. He wants it for vacation property. The family prefers to sell to you, but they can't wait forever. I look at Maricel. She's staring at her plate, and I realize she's embarrassed. Embarrassed that I'm hesitating, that I don't trust her family, that after 6 months together I still think she might be lying to me. No, I say. I don't need a night. Let's do it. The relief on her face is immediate. She grabs my hand and squeezes it hard. Thank you, she whispers. Thank you for trusting me. Attorney Reyes slides the papers closer. Initial here, here, and here. Sign at the bottom. I pick up the pen, and for just a second, I hear Margaret's voice in my head. What are you doing, Terrence? But then it's gone, and I'm signing my name, and everyone's smiling, and Maricel is crying happy tears. I'm doing something bold. I'm investing in my future. I'm proving that my life isn't over just because my wife died. That's what I tell myself. I need to explain how a 76-year-old man from Glasgow ends up in a Philippine restaurant signing away his life savings to people he's known for 8 months. The story starts 3 years ago with Margaret's diagnosis. Lung cancer. Stage 4. She was dead in 6 months. We had 48 years together. 48 years of waking up next to the same person, eating breakfast together, arguing about whose turn it was to take out the bins. Then she was gone, and I was living in a house full of her things with nobody to share them with. Emma, my daughter, wanted me to move closer to her in Glasgow. "You can help with the grandkids, Dad. It'll be good for you." But I couldn't do it. Couldn't stomach being the sad grandfather in the corner, the one everyone felt sorry for. My son Robert called every few weeks from Edinburgh, always sounding busy, always cutting the conversation short. "We should visit soon, Dad. Maybe Christmas." But Christmas came and went, and he never showed. I started reading about expats, men my age, retired, living in Southeast Asia on their pensions. The articles made it sound like paradise. Affordable cost of living, warm weather, friendly locals. One article mentioned Dumaguete, a university city in the Philippines. Safe, English-speaking, beautiful. I looked at photos of the waterfront boulevard, the old churches, the smiling faces. I thought, why not? What's keeping me in Glasgow? Margaret's grave? I could visit. My kids? They had their own lives. I bought a one-way ticket. Emma cried when I told her. "Dad, you don't know anyone there. What if something happens?" "Then something happens," I said. "I'm not living the rest of my life in this house waiting to die." Robert was more practical. "What about your pension? Your health care?" "The pension transfers. I've checked, and health care there is cheap," he sighed. "Just be careful, Dad. There are people who target foreign retirees." "I'll be careful," I promised. I wasn't careful. I arrived in Dumaguete on a Tuesday morning in April. The heat hit me the second I stepped off the plane. Not uncomfortable heat. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you realize how cold you've been. I took a tricycle to my rental apartment, a one-bedroom place 3 blocks from the sea. The landlord, a woman named Mrs. Santos, showed me around, explained how the water heater worked, told me the best places to eat. "You need anything, you call me," she said. "I take care of all my tenants." That first week, I walked everywhere, the boulevard, the university, the public market. I ate at different restaurants every day, trying to figure out what I liked. The locals were friendly but kept their distance. I was obviously foreign, obviously alone. I didn't mind. Alone was what I came for. Then I met Maricel at the market, and alone stopped feeling like freedom. It started feeling like loneliness. The first month, we met for coffee twice a week. She'd finish her shift at the restaurant where she worked, and we'd walk to a cafe near the university. She taught me Tagalog phrases. Kumusta ka means how are you. Salamat means thank you. Mahal kita means I love you. But she only taught me that one as a joke, laughing at my pronunciation. I told her about Margaret, about the shipyards where I'd worked for 43 years, about my kids who never visited. She told me about growing up in Pangasinan, about moving to Dumaguete for work, about her family back home. "Do you miss them?" I asked. "Every day," she said. "But there's no work in Pangasinan. I send money home every month." "For your family?" "For my nephew's school fees. My mother's medicine. You know how it is." I didn't, actually. My kids never needed me to send money, but I nodded like I understood. By month 3, we were seeing each other almost every day. She'd come to my apartment after work, and we'd cook dinner together. She taught me how to make adobo, pancit, sinigang. I taught her how to make proper fish and chips, though she said it was too greasy. We watched movies on my laptop, took day trips to nearby beaches, talked about everything and nothing. She never asked me for money, never hinted that she needed help. That's important. If she'd asked, maybe I would have been suspicious, but she didn't. She split restaurant bills with me, bought her own ferry tickets, insisted on paying her share. "I'm not with you for your money, Terrence," she said once. "I'm with you because you're kind, because you listen, because you make me feel safe." I wanted to believe her so badly that I did. Month 4, she invited me to meet her aunt and uncle in Dumaguete. They lived in a nice house in the suburbs, modern and clean. The uncle spoke decent English, asked me about Scotland, told me about his time working in Saudi Arabia decades ago. The aunt cooked an enormous meal, kept piling food on my plate. Luis was there too, Maricel's cousin, the one who would later sell me imaginary land. He was charming, asked intelligent questions about Glasgow's shipbuilding industry, told me about property development in the Philippines. If you're planning to stay long-term, you should think about buying, he said. Renting is throwing money away. I'm not sure I'm staying long-term, I said. Maricel looked disappointed. You're not? I don't know, I admitted. I came here to escape. I haven't decided if I'm staying or just hiding. She squeezed my hand. You don't have to decide now. Just enjoy yourself. But I saw something in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or calculation. After that dinner, we went back to my apartment, and she stayed the night for the first time. We didn't do anything. We're too old for that, both of us. She just slept next to me, her hand on my chest, and I stared at the ceiling thinking, this is it. This is what I came here for. Connection, touch, proof that I'm still alive. By morning, I'd decided. I was staying in the Philippines, and wherever Maricel went, I'd go too. The next 4 months were the happiest I'd been since Margaret died. Maricel and I fell into a routine. Coffee every morning at 7 at the same cafe on the boulevard. She'd arrive straight from her night shift at the restaurant, still smelling like cooking oil and garlic, and I'd have her coffee waiting. Iced, extra sweet, no sugar, she'd say, testing me. Iced, extra sweet, no ice, I'd correct. She'd laugh, that laugh. I'd do anything to hear it. We'd sit and watch the street wake up. Vendors setting up stalls, students rushing to class, old men doing Tai Chi in the park. Tell me something about Glasgow I don't know, she'd say. It rains 300 days a year, I'd say. That's horrible. You get used to it. Or you move to the Philippines. She'd smile and steal a bite of my pastry. Tell me something about Pangasinan I don't know, I'd say. The beaches are the most beautiful in the Philippines. White sand, clear water, perfect sunsets. Better than Dumaguete? Much better. You should come visit. Maybe I will. She taught me more Tagalog, not just phrases but actual conversation. Gusto kong kumain means I want to eat. Saan ang banyo means where's the bathroom. Ikaw ang aking kaligayahan means you are my happiness. Did you just teach me something romantic? I asked. Maybe, she said, not looking at me. I practiced in secret, mumbling Tagalog to myself in my apartment, determined to surprise her. One morning I said, Napakaganda mo, which means you're beautiful. She stopped mid-sip of her coffee and stared at me. Where did you learn that? YouTube, I admitted. She leaned across the table and kissed my forehead. You're a good man, Terrence. Those words. I held on to them later, when everything fell apart. You're a good man. She said it like she meant it. We took the ferry to Apo Island on her day off. The water was impossibly blue, the kind of blue that doesn't exist in Scotland. We snorkeled, and she held my hand underwater, pointing at fish I didn't know the names for. Afterward, we sat on the beach eating mangoes, and she told me about her childhood. We were poor, she said. Not starving poor, but poor enough. My father left when I was 8. My mother raised us alone. My older brother died in a motorcycle accident when I was 15. After that, everything changed. My mother got depressed, stopped working. I had to drop out of school to help support us. I'm sorry, I said. Don't be. It made me strong. But sometimes I wonder what I could have been if things were different. Maybe a teacher. Maybe a doctor. Definitely not serving pancit to drunk students at midnight. I put my arm around her. You're still young. You could go back to school. With what money? She wasn't bitter when she said it, just factual. That night on the ferry ride home, she fell asleep on my shoulder. I looked at her face, peaceful in sleep, and thought I could take care of her. I have money. I could give her the life she deserves. The thought didn't scare me. It felt right. I started helping her with money. Small things at first. Her mother needed medicine, so I gave her 2,000 pesos. Her nephew needed school supplies. Another 1,000. She always protested. Terrence, you don't have to. I want to, I'd say. And I did. What else was I going to spend my pension on? I wasn't buying things, wasn't traveling beyond the occasional island trip. The money was just sitting in my UK account, doing nothing. At least this way, it was helping someone I cared about. Emma called one Sunday morning. How are you, Dad? Good. Really good. You sound different. Happy. I am happy. Have you met someone? I hesitated. Yes. Silence on the other end. Then, Dad, that's wonderful. Tell me about her. I told her about Maricel. About her smile, her kindness, how she made me feel alive again. Emma listened, asked questions, seemed genuinely happy for me. Then she said, just be careful, okay? You're vulnerable right now. Make sure she likes you for you, not for your money. She's not like that, I said, too defensive. I'm sure she's lovely. I'm just saying, be smart about it. We hung up, and I felt angry. Angry that Emma assumed the worst. Angry that she couldn't just be happy for me. But underneath the anger was something else. Fear. Fear that Emma was right. That week, I tested Maricel without meaning to. We were at dinner, and I mentioned that my pension had been delayed. That money was tight for the month. Her reaction was immediate. Oh no, do you need help? I can lend you something. You'd lend me money? Of course. We're together, Terrence. Your problems are my problems. I told her I was joking, that the pension was fine. She looked relieved but also hurt. You were testing me, she said. Maricel, it's okay. I understand. You're careful with money. That's smart. But the fact that she saw through me, that she wasn't angry, just understanding, that's what convinced me she was real. A scammer would have been angry, offended. Maricel just squeezed my hand and changed the subject. I held her hand the rest of that night, thinking, Emma's wrong. This is real. This is real. I believed it so completely that I never questioned it again. Not until it was too late. Luis brought up the land on a Saturday. We were at dinner at what Maricel called her aunt's house. The place was nice, 2 stories, tile floors, modern kitchen. The aunt, a woman named Tita Rosa, cooked an enormous meal. Adobo, lumpia, rice, grilled fish, fresh mangoes for dessert. The uncle, Tito Ben, was quieter, spoke mostly in Tagalog with Maricel. Luis sat across from me, dressed casually but expensively. Designer polo shirt, good watch. Maricel tells me you're thinking of staying in the Philippines long term, he said. I am, I said. I like it here. Feels more like home than Scotland does now. Have you thought about buying property? I shrugged. I'm renting. It's easier. Easier, sure. But you're paying what, 20,000 pesos a month? About that. That's $250,000 a year. In 5 years, you've spent over 1,000,000 pesos and own nothing. If you bought land, built a small house, you'd own an asset. Something you could pass to your kids. He said it casually, like he was just offering friendly advice. Maricel jumped in. Luis, don't bother Terrence with business talk. It's fine, I said. He has a point. I haven't really thought about buying. Luis leaned back. The thing is, good land is getting scarce. Foreign retirees are buying up everything near the coast. Prices are doubling every few years. Tito Ben said something in Tagalog. Maricel translated. He says our family has land in Pangasinan, beachfront. My grandfather bought it in the 70s. Really? I said. Luis nodded. 800 square meters, right on the beach, prime location. The family's been holding on to it for years, but Tito Ben is getting older. He wants to sell while he still can. How much would something like that cost? I asked. Luis pulled out his phone, showed me photos. White sand beach, coconut trees, crystal clear water. It looked like something from a postcard. Market value is probably around 12 million pesos, he said. But for family they'd sell for 10.8 million. That's about 158,000 pounds. I whistled. That's steep. For that location? It's a bargain. I could show you listings in the area selling for twice that. Maricel touched my arm. Luis, stop. You're pressuring him. I'm not pressuring anyone. Just making conversation. But I could see it in his eyes. Interest. Not pushy interest, but the look of a salesman who smells a potential deal. Could I see it? I asked. Luis smiled. Of course. Any time. That night, Maricel and I walked along the boulevard. I'm sorry about Luis, she said. He can be a bit much. He's fine, I said, just doing his job. You're not actually interested in buying land, are you? I stopped walking. Would it be crazy if I was? She looked surprised. Terrence, that's a huge decision. That's your pension money. I'm not saying I'll definitely do it, but I could look, couldn't I? See the property, do some research? She bit her lip. The land is beautiful. I grew up going there. My grandmother used to take us to the beach every summer, but it's expensive. And buying property in the Philippines is complicated for foreigners. How complicated? You can't own land directly. It has to be in a Filipino name. Usually a spouse or a trusted partner. A trusted partner like you? I said it as a joke, but she didn't laugh. Terrence, I would never ask you to do that. I'm not saying you're asking. I'm saying hypothetically, if I wanted to buy land and needed it in someone's name, would you be willing? She stopped walking. We were standing under a streetlight, moths circling overhead. Are you serious right now? I don't know. Maybe. She shook her head. I don't want you doing something like that for me. That's too much responsibility. What if something happened between us? You'd lose everything. What if something didn't happen between us? I said. What if we're still together in 5 years, and I'm still renting, and I'm kicking myself for not buying when I had the chance? She looked at me for a long time. You really trust me that much? I do, I said, and I meant it. She hugged me tight, right there on the boulevard, and I felt her trembling. I thought she was emotional because I'd said I trusted her. I didn't realize she was relieved because she'd just hooked me. Let's not rush into anything, she said. But if you want to see the land, I'll take you. No pressure, no commitment. Just look. Okay, I said. Let's look. We walked back to my apartment holding hands, and I felt like I'd just made a decision that would change my life. I was right, just not in the way I thought. 2 weeks later, Luis called me. Terrence, I have some news. My uncle's cancer is getting worse. The doctors say he needs surgery soon, but it's expensive. The family's decided to sell the Pangasinan land to help pay for treatment. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. I don't mean to pressure you, but if you're still interested, now would be the time. They're looking to close a sale quickly. How quickly? Ideally within the month. I felt my stomach tighten. A month wasn't enough time to do proper research, verify documents, think things through. But if I said no, the land would go to someone else, and I'd never forgive myself. Can I see it first? I asked. Of course. How about next weekend? Next weekend works. I hung up and immediately called Maricel. She was at work, sounded busy. Luis just called, I said. About the land? Yeah. He says your uncle's sick, that the family needs to sell fast. Silence on the other end. Then, it's true. Tito Ben's been getting worse. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to feel pressured. I don't feel pressured. I lied. I want to help. If buying the land helps your family, that's even better. Terrence, you don't have to do this. I know, but I want to. Let's go next weekend. I want to see it. Okay, she said softly. Okay. We left for Pangasinan early Saturday morning. Luis drove. I offered to pay for gas, but he refused. You're practically family now, he said. Maricel sat in the back with me, holding my hand the whole 6-hour drive. She'd packed snacks, water, motion sickness pills for me, even though I'd never mentioned getting carsick. You're quiet, she said somewhere around hour 3. Just thinking, I said. About? Whether I'm making a huge mistake. She squeezed my hand. If you have doubts, we can turn around. No one's forcing you. But Luis was driving, and we were halfway there, and turning around felt like admitting I didn't trust her. I'm not having doubts, I said. Just nervous. That's normal. It's a big decision. We stopped for lunch in a town I didn't catch the name of. Local place, plastic chairs, flies buzzing around. The food was incredible. I ate pork belly and rice and tried not to think about how much money I was about to spend. We arrived at the property around 3 in the afternoon. Luis pulled off the main road onto a dirt path, drove maybe half a kilometer through coconut groves. Then the trees opened up, and I saw the beach. I actually gasped. White sand stretching in both directions. Water so clear I could see the bottom 20 meters out, coconut palms swaying in the breeze. It looked exactly like the photos Luis had shown me. No, better than the photos. This is it, Luis said, parking. We got out, and I just stood there, staring. Maricel came up beside me. Beautiful, isn't it? It's unbelievable. An old man was tending to the property, trimming grass around some coconut trees. When he saw Maricel, his face lit up. Maricel, kumusta? She hugged him, spoke rapid Tagalog. Then she turned to me. This is Mang Pedro. He's our family's caretaker. He maintains the property for us. I shook his hand. He smiled, said something in Tagalog, gestured broadly at the beach. He says, "Welcome to paradise," Maricel translated. Luis walked me around the perimeter. There were concrete posts every 50 meters or so, marking the boundaries. "These are the property markers," he said. 800 square meters total, from here to here. He showed me a surveyor's map on his phone, pointed out the lot lines, the measurements. Everything matched what he'd told me. We walked to the water. I took off my shoes, felt the sand between my toes, watched the waves roll in. Maricel came up beside me. "My grandmother brought me here when I was little," she said. "I learned to swim right there." She pointed at a spot maybe 30 meters out. I thought I was going to drown. The current pulled me under, and I panicked. Lola jumped in fully clothed and pulled me out. I was terrified, but she just laughed and said, "The ocean tests you, but it always brings you back." "Sounds like she was wise," I said. "She was. I miss her." We stood there in silence, and I thought about Margaret, about how she would have loved this place, how she would have wanted to retire somewhere warm, somewhere we could walk on the beach every evening. I thought about building a small house here, living out my last years, listening to the waves, watching the sunset with Maricel. It felt possible. It felt right. That evening, we drove to a hotel in the nearby town. Luis got his own room. Maricel and I shared one. We sat on the balcony, drinking San Miguel beer, watching the sky turn dark. "So," she said, "what do you think?" "I think it's beautiful," I said. "I think I'd be stupid not to buy it. But it's a lot of money, and I've never bought property abroad. I don't know the laws, the process, any of it." She nodded. "That's smart. You should talk to a lawyer. Make sure everything's legitimate." Luis said he knows a good attorney. Attorney Reyes. He's handled property sales for our family before. Very professional. I pulled out my phone, called Emma. She answered on the third ring, sounding sleepy. I'd forgotten about the time difference. "Dad?" "It's 3 a.m. "Sorry, love. I forgot. I can call back." "No, it's fine. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm in Pangasinan, looking at property." Silence. "Property?" "Beachfront land. It's beautiful, Emma. You should see it." "Dad, have you seen the actual title? The legal documents?" "Not yet, but I will. There's an attorney who's going to handle everything." "Dad, please don't make any decisions without talking to someone independent. Not someone connected to the seller. Maricel's not trying to scam me, Emma. I'm not saying she is. I'm saying you need to protect yourself. Please, just promise me you'll be careful." I promised. We hung up, and I felt irritated. Why couldn't Emma just be happy for me? Why did everyone assume the worst? Maricel had been watching me quietly. "Your daughter's worried," she said. "She thinks I'm being reckless." "Are you?" I looked at her. "I don't know. Maybe, but I'm 76 years old. If I can't be reckless now, when can I be?" She smiled sadly. "You don't have to prove anything to me, Terrence. If you want to walk away from this, I'll understand." "I don't want to walk away," I said, and I meant it. That night, lying in bed with Maricel asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Margaret. What would she tell me if she were still alive? Would she warn me against this? Or would she tell me to live, to take chances, to not spend my last years playing it safe? I decided she'd tell me to live. I decided I was making the right choice. I fell asleep thinking about coconut trees and white sand and Maricel's hand in mine. I should have stayed awake. I should have questioned everything. But I was happy, and happiness makes you blind. Attorney Reyes's office was in a professional building downtown Dumaguete, third floor, corner unit. The waiting room had leather chairs, a receptionist behind a desk, diplomas and certificates covering the walls. Reyes himself was mid-50s, wire-rimmed glasses, expensive suit. He shook my hand with the confidence of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. "Mr. Terrence, please sit. Can Maria get you coffee?" I accepted. The coffee came in a proper cup and saucer, not some paper cup. That detail mattered to me. It felt legitimate. Luis and Maricel were already seated. The atmosphere felt formal, businesslike. Attorney Reyes spread documents across his desk. "Before we begin, do you understand the basics of Philippine property law regarding foreign ownership?" "I understand foreigners can't own land directly," I said. "Correct. However, there are legal arrangements to protect your investment. The most common is to have the land titled in the name of a Filipino citizen with whom you have a genuine relationship, coupled with legal documents establishing your financial interest." He slid papers toward me. "This is a conditional sales agreement. It establishes that you are purchasing the property for 10.8 million pesos, equivalent to approximately 158,000 pounds. The land will be titled in Maricel's name as required by law." "And what protects me?" I asked. Attorney Reyes pulled out another document. "This is a cohabitation agreement. It legally establishes your domestic partnership with Maricel and your right to the property despite it being in her name. Additionally, you'll have a deed of absolute sale showing the purchase price and your financial contribution. If the relationship were to end, these documents would support your claim in court." "Would they hold up?" "Absolutely. I've handled dozens of similar cases. The courts recognize these arrangements as long as the relationship is genuine and documented." He said it so confidently that I believed him. Luis added, "I've worked with Attorney Reyes for 10 years. He's handled all my family's property transactions. He's very thorough. The title transfer will take approximately 60 to 90 days, Attorney Reyes continued. "The registry of deeds is slow, unfortunately, but I'll personally ensure the paperwork is processed correctly. You'll pay half today as a deposit, half upon completion of the transfer." "And I'll have copies of everything?" I asked. "Of course. Certified copies of the sales agreement, the cohabitation agreement, the tax declarations, everything." I looked at Maricel. She'd been quiet this whole time. "Are you okay with this?" I asked her. "With the land being in your name?" "If you trust me," she said. "I do. But it's a big responsibility. I want to make sure you're comfortable." She reached across and took my hand. "I'm comfortable. I love you, Terrence. I want us to build something together." She'd never said that before. "I love you." My eyes got wet, and I had to look away. Attorney Reyes coughed politely. "Shall we proceed?" I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking. I thought about Emma's warning. I thought about Robert's skepticism. I thought about Margaret. Then I thought about sitting on that beach yesterday, watching the sunset, feeling happy for the first time in years. I initialed every page, signed at the bottom of the final document. Maricel signed next to me. Our signatures side by side, like a marriage certificate. "Excellent," Attorney Reyes said. "Now, the payment." I'd already arranged the wire transfer that morning. 78,000 pounds from my UK bank account to Luis's business account, supposedly held in trust until the title transfer completed. My phone buzzed with the confirmation. I showed Attorney Reyes. He made notes, stamped documents, filed copies into a folder. "You'll receive your copies within the week," he said. "And I'll update you monthly on the title transfer progress." We shook hands. Luis clapped me on the shoulder. "Welcome to property ownership in the Philippines." Maricel hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for trusting me." We left the office, and I felt like I was floating. I'd done it. I'd made a real investment, taken a real risk, proved I was more than just a lonely old man waiting to die. That evening, We went back to Cafe Laguna to celebrate. The same place where this had all started. We ordered champagne, which was really just Prosecco, but it felt fancy. Maricel was glowing. "I can't believe we're going to have our own beach house," she said. "We should start planning. How big do you want to build?" "Small," I said. 2 bedrooms, maybe. One for us, one for guests. Open living area, big windows facing the sea. Solar panels, if we can afford it. We'll make it perfect. Our little paradise. I believed every word. My phone rang. "Robert." I almost didn't answer, but Maricel nodded at me. "Take it. It's your son." I stepped outside. "Hello?" "Dad," Emma called me. She said, "You're buying property in the Philippines?" "I did. Today, actually." Silence. Then, "Dad, please tell me you didn't send the money yet." "I did. This morning. £78,000. Christ, Dad. £78,000? It's an investment, Robert. Good beachfront land. Have you seen the title? The real title? From the Registry of Deeds? I've seen copies. The attorney has the originals. Dad, listen to me. I work in finance. I've seen these scams before. They show you fake documents, staged properties, professional-looking offices. Then they take your money and disappear. It's not a scam, Robert. I've met the family. I've seen the land. You've seen a beach. How do you know they own it? I felt my anger rising. Because I'm not an idiot. Because I've been careful. Because the woman I love wouldn't lie to me. The woman you've known for 8 months? Yes, 8 months. That's enough time to know someone. Robert sighed. Dad, I'm worried about you. This doesn't feel right. Please, before you send any more money, let me hire an independent lawyer to verify everything. I'm not sending more money, I lied. I knew there'd be a second payment, but I wasn't going to argue about it now. Just promise me you'll be careful. Please. I'm fine, Robert. I know what I'm doing. We hung up, and I felt sick. Not because I doubted my decision, but because my own son didn't trust my judgment. I went back inside. Maricel looked at me. Everything okay? Fine, I said. Just Robert being overprotective. She squeezed my hand. He loves you. He's just worried. I know. But I didn't call Robert back for 2 months after that. I told myself I was too busy, too happy to deal with his negativity. The truth is, I was scared he'd make me see something I didn't want to see. So I ignored him. I ignored Emma's concerns. I ignored every warning sign and every red flag. And I told myself I was living my life on my own terms. I was a fool. The first month after signing, everything was fine. Maricel and I spent our mornings planning the beach house. She bought architecture magazines, sketched floor plans, showed me photos of houses she liked. I want big windows here, she'd say, so we can see the sunrise from bed, and a veranda facing the water, I'd add, with a hammock, and coconut trees all around. We talked about it like it was already built, like we were already living there. I started looking at furniture online, pricing solar panel systems, researching building contractors in Pangasinan. It felt real. But then Attorney Reyes stopped returning my calls. I'd call his office, and the receptionist would say he was in court or with a client. I'll have him call you back, she'd promise. He never did. After 2 weeks of this, I went to his office unannounced. The receptionist looked uncomfortable. Mr. Terrence, Attorney Reyes is very busy with, I just need 5 minutes. I'm a client. He can spare 5 minutes. She made a call, and Reyes came out looking harassed. Mr. Terrence, I apologize. The registry has been extremely slow. It's been 6 weeks, I said. You told me 60 to 90 days. That's the standard timeline, yes, but sometimes there are delays. What kind of delays? Administrative. You know how government offices are. Nothing to worry about. But I was worrying. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up at 3 a.m, went through all my documents, the sales agreement, the cohabitation papers, the tax declarations. Everything had stamps and signatures. Everything looked official. But I noticed something. The Registry of Deeds stamp on the title copy was smudged. Not badly, but enough that you couldn't quite read the date. I told myself it was because it was a photocopy, just a copying artifact, nothing to worry about. But I kept staring at it, feeling sick. Luis became hard to reach, too. I'd call about construction timelines, and he'd text back saying he was in meetings. When we did talk, he sounded distracted. The title transfer is taking longer than expected, he admitted. There's some issue with the surveyor's report. Nothing serious. What kind of issue? Technical stuff. Attorney Reyes is handling it. Should I be worried? No. These things happen. Just be patient. But patience wasn't my strong suit. Not anymore. Maricel noticed my mood shifting. You're stressed, she said one morning. It's nothing. It's not nothing. Talk to me. I put down my coffee. I'm worried about the title transfer. It's taking too long. These things always take time in the Philippines, Terrence. You have to be patient. Everyone keeps saying that. Be patient. Don't worry. But it's my money. £78,000. I have a right to worry. She looked hurt. You don't trust me. It's not about trust. It's about wanting to see progress, wanting confirmation that this is actually happening. She stood up. I'm going to talk to Luis. I'll get you an update today. She left, and I felt guilty. But the guilt didn't erase the worry. She came back that evening with printouts. More documents, more stamps, more signatures. Luis says the surveyor's report is being corrected. It should be filed next week. Then the registry will process the title transfer. Another week, I said. Then another. Then another. Terrence, please. You're making this so hard. I'm making it hard? I gave you £78,000. I think I'm entitled to ask questions. She started crying. Actually crying, tears running down her face. I thought you trusted me. I thought we were building something together. But you're treating me like I'm trying to steal from you. I felt like a monster. I pulled her into a hug. I'm sorry. I do trust you. I'm just scared. Scared of what? Of losing everything. Of being wrong about this. About us. She pulled back, looked me in the eyes. You're not wrong. I love you. The land is real. The title transfer will happen. You just have to believe in me. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Okay, I said. Okay, I'm sorry. We didn't talk about it again that week, but the doubt was there, sitting in my stomach like a stone. I met George at a pub near the boulevard. He was a British expat, 71, been living in Dumaguete for 5 years. We'd met at a quiz night and bonded over our shared hatred of Manchester United. We were on our second beer when he asked, "So what have you been up to?" "Bought some land," I said, trying to sound casual. "In Pangasinan." George's face changed. "Beachfront?" "Yeah. How'd you know?" "Because that's the oldest scam in the book, mate." My chest tightened. "It's not a scam." "Did you physically see the title? Did you go to the registry yourself and verify ownership?" "I saw copies. The attorney has the originals." George shook his head. "Copies can be anything. Anyone with a laptop and a printer can make a fake title. Please tell me you didn't send money." I didn't answer. George swore. "How much?" £78,000, he whistled. "Christ. And it's in her name?" "Her name. But we have legal agreements protecting my investment." "Those are worthless, mate. If the land isn't real, the agreements mean nothing." "You don't know what you're talking about," I said, standing up. "I've done my research. I've been careful. Have you? Or have you been lonely and desperate and willing to believe anything a pretty young woman tells you?" I walked out. I didn't talk to George again for 3 months. But his words stayed with me, circling my brain every night when I tried to sleep. Copies can be anything. I started watching Maricel differently, looking for signs. When she was on her phone, I wondered who she was texting. When she said she had to visit her family, I wondered if that was true. When she smiled at me, I wondered if it was real or if I was just another mark. I hated myself for doubting her, but I couldn't stop. Attorney Reyes called on a Thursday morning. I was having coffee when my phone rang. I nearly jumped. "Mr. Terrence, we have a complication. My stomach dropped. What kind of complication? There's an old lien on the property. From Maricel's grandfather's generation. Nothing serious, but it needs to be cleared before the title can transfer. A lien? Luis never mentioned a lien. The family wasn't aware of it. These old debts sometimes don't show up until you're deep in the registry records, but it's straightforward to resolve. Just requires payment to clear it. How much? 40,000 pounds. I almost dropped the phone. 40,000. On top of what I've already paid? I understand it's unexpected, but these situations do arise. The good news is, once this is cleared, the title transfer will proceed immediately. No more delays. Can I see documentation of this lien? Of course. I'll email you copies this afternoon. I hung up and immediately called Maricel. She was crying before I even explained. I'm so sorry, Terrence. My family didn't know. They're so embarrassed. It's 40,000 pounds, Maricel. I know. I told Luis we should just cancel the whole thing, give you your money back. Can you, what? Can you give me my money back? Silence. Terrence, the money went to pay Tito Ben's medical bills. It's gone. That stone in my stomach got heavier. So my options are lose 78,000 pounds or spend another 40,000 pounds. I don't know what to tell you. I'm so sorry. She was sobbing now, and I felt torn between comforting her and screaming. Luis called next, professional, apologetic, explaining the lien in detail. It was from a loan Maricel's grandfather had taken in 1989, never paid off, now sitting on the property record. These things happen with old family land, he said. It's unfortunate but not uncommon. Why didn't this show up during the initial title search? It should have. Attorney Reyes missed it. He's offered to reduce his legal fees to compensate for the oversight. I called Robert. We hadn't spoken in 6 weeks. Dad, he said, I've been trying to reach you. I know. I'm sorry. I need your advice. I explained everything. The lien, the second payment, the delays. Robert was quiet for a long time. Dad, this is textbook scam progression. They get you to invest, then they find unexpected problems that require more money. If you pay this, there'll be another problem. And another. They'll bleed you dry. But if I don't pay, I lose everything I've already put in. You've already lost it, Dad. That money is gone. If you send more, you're just feeding the scam. You don't know that for sure. Yes, I do. Dad, please, I'm begging you. Don't send anything else. Let me hire an investigator. Let me verify this property actually exists. It exists. I've seen it. You've seen a beach. That doesn't mean it's for sale or that these people own it. We argued for 20 minutes, he begged. I got defensive. We hung up angry, and I sat in my apartment staring at the wall. Maricel came over that evening. Her eyes were red from crying. I talked to my family, she said. They want to return your money. We can't do this to you. Return it? You said the money's gone. We can borrow. Sell something. Find a way. You shouldn't have to pay more because of our family's mistakes. The fact that she was offering to give it back, that's what convinced me she was genuine. A scammer wouldn't offer that, would they? How long would it take to get the money back? I asked. She shook her head. Months, maybe a year. We'd have to take loans, sell my aunt's car, maybe her house. And Tito Ben's medical treatment? We'd figure something out. Your money is more important. I took her hands. Listen to me. I'm going to pay the 40,000 pounds. Terrence, no. I'm going to pay it because I trust you, because I believe in us, because I'm not going to let some old debt ruin this. She started crying again, holding me tight. You're too good to me. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do, I said, and I believed it. I wired 40,000 pounds the next morning. Total investment, 118,000 pounds. My pension fund was now nearly depleted. I had maybe 32,000 pounds left. That would have to cover my living expenses, my rent, everything. If something went wrong, I had no cushion. But I told myself it would be fine. The title would transfer. We'd build our house. I'd have an asset worth far more than what I'd paid. It would all work out. 3 days later, Attorney Reyes's office phone was disconnected. I called 5 times. Got a, "This number is no longer in service" message. I called Luis. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I went to Attorney Reyes's office. The door was locked. No lights on. I knocked. No answer. A woman from the neighboring office poked her head out. "He's gone," she said. "Who?" "The lawyer. Left 2 days ago. Lease was up end of last month." "What about his secretary? His files?" "All gone. Place is empty." I felt the world tilt. I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. "Are you okay, sir?" the woman asked. I couldn't answer. I stumbled down the stairs, out into the street, called Maricel. She answered on the 4th ring. "Reyes is gone," I said. "What?" "His office is empty. His phone's disconnected. He's vanished." "That's impossible. Luis is meeting with him tomorrow about—" "Maricel, I'm standing outside his office right now. It's empty." Long silence. "Let me call Luis." She hung up. I stood on the sidewalk, people walking around me, feeling like I was going to vomit. My phone rang. "Maricel." "Luis isn't answering," she said. Her voice was different, not panicked, flat. "Maricel, what's happening?" "I don't know. Where's Luis?" "He said he was going to Manila for the title processing." "When?" "Yesterday. He went to Manila yesterday, and now both he and the attorney are unreachable." "Terrence, I'm sure there's an explanation." "What explanation?" "They took my money and disappeared." I was yelling now, people staring. "Terrence, please calm down. I gave you £118,000. I need to know what's happening." "I'll find out, I promise. Just give me a few days." "A few days? Please, trust me." But the trust was gone. I could feel it, bleeding out of me like life from a wound. I went home and sat in the dark for hours, phone in my hand, waiting for it to ring. It didn't. That night, I went through every document I had, looking for something, anything, that would tell me this was real. But all I had were copies that anyone with a computer could forge. I thought about George's warning. Copies can be anything. I thought about Robert's prediction. They'll bleed you dry. I thought about Emma's plea. Please be careful. And I thought about Maricel's hand in mine, her tears when she promised this was real, her voice saying I love you. Had it all been an act, or had she believed it too, right until the moment it fell apart? I didn't know, and not knowing was worse than anything else. I didn't hear from Maricel for 3 days. No calls, no texts, no visits. I went to her apartment. Her landlady said she'd gone home to Pangasinan. Family emergency. "Did she say when she'd be back?" I asked. The landlady shrugged. "She paid through the month. After that, I don't know." I tried Luis's number 20 more times. Always voicemail. I tried Attorney Reyes's cell. Disconnected. I filed a complaint with the local police, but they said without evidence of fraud, there was nothing they could do. People move all the time, sir. Maybe they're just busy. They have £118,000 of my money. Do you have proof the money was for an illegal purpose? I didn't. All my documents showed a legitimate property purchase. On paper, everything was legal. It was only in reality that it was a scam. On the 4th day, Maricel texted, "I'm in Pangasinan. Need to talk. Can you come?" I borrowed a car from my landlady, drove 6 hours north, hands shaking the whole way. I didn't know what I'd find. Part of me hoped she'd have answers, explanations, proof that this was all a misunderstanding. Part of me knew better. I met her at a restaurant in her hometown. She looked different, tired. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. We sat across from each other, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Where's the land?" I finally asked. "We should go see it," she said. "Now?" "Now." We drove to the location. The same dirt road, the same coconut groves, but when we reached the beach, something was different. There was construction happening. Heavy machinery, workers pouring concrete foundation, supplies stacked everywhere. I got out of the car, confused. Maricel stayed in the passenger seat, staring at her hands. I approached the workers. "Excuse me, who owns this land?" They looked at me blankly. I tried basic Tagalog. "Sino ang may-ari?" one of them called over a supervisor. Middle-aged man, hard hat, clipboard. "Can I help you?" he asked in English. "I own this land," I said. He frowned. "No, sir. The Santos family owns this land. We're building their vacation home." "The Santos family?" "Yes. They've owned it for 15 years. He pulled out his clipboard, showed me documents. Legitimate registry of deeds stamps. Clear and crisp. Title in the name of Roberto Santos. Not Maricel. Not her family. Santos. My legs went weak. "Are you okay, sir?" the supervisor asked. I couldn't answer. I walked back to the car. Maricel was still sitting there, still not looking at me. I got in the driver's seat. "Explain," I said. She didn't move. "Maricel, explain, right now." "I needed the money," she said quietly. "My family needed it. We have nothing, Terrence. You have so much. I have nothing now. You took everything. You'll be fine. You have your pension. You'll get more money." "That's not the point." I was shouting, my voice cracking. "You lied to me. For months. You made me believe. I didn't lie about everything," she said, finally looking at me. "I do care about you. I did enjoy our time together. You stole 118,000 pounds from me. You gave it. I didn't put a gun to your head." The words hit me like a punch. She was right. I had given it. I had signed the papers, made the wire transfers, ignored every warning. I couldn't even claim I'd been forced. "Who were they?" I asked. "Luis and Attorney Reyes. Who were they really?" "I don't know their real names. Luis found me. Said he knew a way to make money. I just had to meet foreign men, make them trust me, get them to invest in fake property. He handled everything else." "How many? What? How many men have you done this to?" She looked away. "You're the third." I felt sick. So everything was fake. The coffee dates, the island trips, the way you'd hold my hand and tell me you cared. All fake. "Not all fake," she said. "I liked you, Terrence. You were kind to me. Kinder than the others. But I still needed the money more than I needed you. Where's my money now? Gone. Offshore accounts. Spread across multiple people. Even if you sue, you'll never recover it. And Luis? Probably working on the next target. You're not even from Pangasinan, are you?" She smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. "I'm from Manila, born in Tondo. Everything I told you about my childhood, my family, my grandmother, all stories. Good ones, though. You believed every word." We sat in silence. I could hear the construction workers behind us, the sound of hammering, machines beeping, building something real on land that was actually theirs. "I'm going to the police," I said. "Go ahead. They won't do anything. We have contracts, legal documents, everything properly signed. As far as the law is concerned, you made a bad investment. That's all. So you just get away with it?" "I already got away with it, Terrence. A month ago." She opened the car door, stepped out. Before she closed it, she looked back at me. "I am sorry, for what it's worth. You deserved better." Then she walked away, down the beach, past the construction site, disappearing into the coconut groves. I sat in the car for an hour, watching the workers build their foundation, the waves rolling in, the sun setting over water I'd thought was mine. Then I drove back to Dumaguete. 6 hours of thinking about every moment we'd shared, every word she'd said, every time I'd ignored my children's warnings because I wanted to believe I wasn't alone. By the time I got home, I wasn't angry anymore. I was just empty. I went to the police the next morning. Officer Santos, mid-30s, took my statement with professional detachment. I showed him every document I had. He reviewed them carefully, made notes, then looked at me with the expression of someone about to deliver bad news. "Mr. Terrence, I understand this is difficult, but legally, you entered into a contract to purchase property. The fact that the property wasn't actually for sale doesn't automatically make it fraud in the eyes of the law. They forged documents, created fake identities. Can you prove the documents are forged? Can you prove Luis and Attorney Reyes aren't their real names?" I couldn't. Everything looked legitimate on paper. "What about Maricel?" I asked. She confessed to me. Do you have that confession recorded? No. Then it's your word against hers. And even if we arrested her, prosecuting this case would be difficult. The contracts were signed willingly. The money was transferred willingly. You'd need to prove intentional deception, which requires evidence we don't have. So I just lose £118,000 and that's it? Officer Santos sighed. I've seen this type of scam before. They're sophisticated operations. Multiple people involved, fake offices, temporary identities. The money moves through several accounts and usually ends up offshore. Even if we tracked it down, recovery would cost more than you lost. So what do I do? You can file a civil suit, try to recover damages. But that will take years and require lawyers you probably can't afford. Realistically, sir, your money is gone. I sat there, feeling the words sink in. Gone. Years of waking up at 5 a.m. for the shipyard. 43 years of saving, planning for retirement, building a cushion to live on. Gone because I was lonely. Is she even in Pangasinan? I asked. We'll send someone to investigate, but I wouldn't count on finding her. These operations are mobile. She's likely already working on the next target. He stood up, extended his hand. I'm sorry, Mr. Terrence. I wish I had better news. I went home and did the math. £32,000 left in my account. My pension was £1,800 a month. Rent was £300. Utilities, food, basic expenses, another £500. That left me £1,000 a month. I could survive. I wouldn't starve. But the comfortable retirement I'd imagined, the security I'd spent 4 decades building, was gone. I called Robert. I'd been putting it off, dreading the conversation. He answered immediately. Dad, are you okay? No, I said. I'm not. I told him everything. The lien, the second payment, the vanishing attorney, the construction site, Maricel's confession. Robert was silent through all of it. When I finished, I heard him crying. Not angry crying, sad crying. Dad, I'm so sorry. I should have come there. I should have stopped you. You tried to warn me. I didn't listen. I'm booking a flight. I'm coming to get you. Robert, you don't need to. Yes, I do. You're my father. I should have been there for you. We talked for 2 hours. He made plans, checked flight prices, talked about me moving back to Edinburgh. I told him I couldn't. Couldn't face the pity, the I told you so looks, the shame of being the old fool who got scammed. Then I'll come there, he said, just for a week. Let me see that you're okay. I'm okay, I lied. I promise. Emma flew out a month later. She sat with me in my apartment, held my hand, cried with me. I'm so angry, Dad. Angry at them. Angry at myself for not protecting you. You tried. I didn't want to be protected. You wanted to be loved. I wanted to not be alone. We talked about loneliness, about Margaret, about how grief makes you do irrational things. She offered money. I refused. You have your own family to support. You're my family. She said, I'm fine, love. I have enough to live on, but not enough to come home. This is home now, for better or worse. She stayed for a week. We walked the boulevard, ate at nice restaurants, pretended everything was normal. The day she left, she hugged me at the airport and whispered, You're not alone, Dad. Even when you feel alone, you're not. We love you. I believed her. But love from 6,000 miles away doesn't keep you warm at night. I see George sometimes. He never says I told you so, which I appreciate. We drink beer at the pub, watch football, talk about everything except what happened. Other expats ask about Maricel sometimes. I tell them we broke up. They nod knowingly. Philippines girls, mate. Beautiful but complicated. I don't correct them. Don't explain that it wasn't complicated. It was simple. She was a criminal and I was a mark. I see other couples around Dumaguete. Older Western men, younger Philippines women. I don't judge them anymore. Maybe they're the lucky ones. Maybe they found something real. Maybe they're just earlier in the same story I lived. There's no way to know until it's over. Maricel disappeared completely. I checked her social media once, but her accounts were deleted. She's probably using a different name now, living in a different city, working on a different lonely man. The land is still there in Pangasinan. I drove by it once, months later. The Santos family's vacation home was finished. Beautiful two-story house, big windows facing the water, coconut trees all around, exactly like I'd imagined building. But it's not mine. It was never mine. I stood on the road looking at it, and I didn't feel angry, just tired. I'm writing this from my apartment in Dumaguete. I haven't moved back to Glasgow. Maybe I'm too stubborn. Maybe I can't face the pity in everyone's eyes. The old man who got scammed, who was so desperate for love that he threw away his life savings. I live simply now, very simply. My pension covers rent and food with a little left over. Emma sends money sometimes. I tell her not to, but she does anyway. It kills me to accept it, but I do because I need to. Robert calls every Sunday. We talk about football, about his kids, about work. He never asks about Maricel, never mentions the money. One time I apologized again, and he just said, "Dad, I don't want your apologies. I want you to be okay." I'm trying to be okay. Some days are easier than others. I see couples sometimes, older men, younger women, holding hands, looking happy. I want to warn them, want to pull them aside and tell them my story, but I don't. Because maybe they're different. Maybe their relationships are real. Maybe their partners actually love them. Who am I to destroy their happiness based on my experience? I learned something, though. I wasn't scammed because I was stupid. I'm not stupid. I was careful. I asked questions. I reviewed documents. I was scammed because I was lonely. Because, after Margaret died, I forgot that my life still had value, that my children still needed me, that my money wasn't just numbers in an account, but 43 years of waking up at 5 in the morning, working in rain and cold, saving for a future that should have been secure. Maricel didn't steal my money. She stole something else. She stole my ability to trust my own judgment. She stole my last chance at believing someone could want me for who I am, not what I have. She stole the ending I thought I deserved. The property never existed, but my loneliness did, and that's what they saw. That's what they used. That night in Cafe Laguna, when I signed the papers, I thought I was being brave. I thought I was taking control of my life, making bold decisions, refusing to spend my last years playing it safe. I was wrong. I was just being scared. Scared of dying alone. Scared that Margaret was the only woman who would ever love me. Scared that the rest of my life would be an empty apartment and video calls with children who had their own lives. So I grabbed onto the first person who showed me kindness, and I paid £118,000 for the privilege. Was any of it real? The morning coffees, the island trips, the way she'd hold my hand and teach me Tagalog? I don't know. She said some of it was real, that she did care about me, just not enough. Maybe that's true. Maybe it was all performance. There's no way to know now, and it doesn't matter. Real or fake, it's gone. She's gone. The money's gone. And I'm here, 76 years old, living on £1,800 a month, wondering how I became the cautionary tale other expats tell each other at bars. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I'm writing it because someone needs to say it. Loneliness is a weapon, and there are people who know how to use it. They're charming, patient, professional. They'll spend months earning your trust before they ever mention money. They'll create elaborate stories, stage property visits, forge documents so convincing that even lawyers miss the flaws. They'll make you feel special, chosen, loved. And by the time you realize it was all a lie, your money is offshore and they're gone. If you're reading this and you're thinking about investing in property abroad with someone you met recently, please stop. Verify everything independently. Hire your own lawyer. Go to the registry yourself. Don't trust copies. Don't trust promises. Don't trust love that comes too easily or opportunities that sound too good to be true. And if your children are warning you, if your friends are expressing concern, if that small voice in your head is saying this doesn't feel right, listen, because that voice is right. You just don't want to hear it. I'll probably die in this apartment. It's not the retirement I planned. It's not the beachfront house with the big windows and the coconut trees. But it's what I have. And I've learned to be grateful for small things. Robert's Sunday calls, Emma's emails, the sunset over the boulevard. The fact that I'm still alive, still breathing, still capable of learning from my mistakes. The land doesn't exist, but I do. And as long as I'm here, I get to decide what the rest of my story looks like. It won't be easy. It won't be comfortable, but it will be mine. That's enough. It has to be.